Hello folks, I'm Evan Brand, certified functional medicine practitioner and functional nutritional therapy practitioner, talking with you today about mold toxicity in the gut. The impact is widespread. So first of all, how do you actually get exposed to mold? Well, in this case, most cases it's through the lungs. You're inhaling mycotoxins. These are basically mold farts that you get exposed to from water damaged buildings. Water damaged buildings are epidemic, and I've seen hundreds of case studies of mold testing plates that we've done in the home. Petri dish testing is what we're using, urine testing on the body, and also we're looking at mold colonization. So here's the big connection. The thing you need to understand is that when you get exposed through the lungs, some of this actually enters the circulation and it gets recirculated through what's called the enterohepatic recirculation pathway. This means, if we pull out the stomach here, right here's your liver and your gallbladder. A lot of mold toxin likes to hang out in this bile pathway. You're recirculating that. About 95% of your bile is recirculated, where only about 5% of your bile is made fresh. Now, why binders come in to save the day is because we can use specific bile acid sequestrants, and we can use specific nutrients like clay, charcoal, zeolite, silica, pectin, fulvic humic acids. We can actually bind up to these mycotoxins that are in this circulatory pathway and flush them out through the stool. Now, assuming that you're pooping, you're going to be able to just zip out the colon and you're going to poop out these mycotoxins. But if you have constipation issues, which are very common with this condition, you have to resolve that. You've got to be pooping at least once, preferably twice a day. You want a banana shape, size, consistency. You want to wipe your butt and there's nothing there. I call that a ghost poop. That is the goal. So this is the process primarily through breathing. You can get some topical exposure to mycotoxins, but I think the primary route is going to be inhalation from water damaged buildings, also ingestion into the stomach and into the circulation via moldy nuts, seeds, moldy grains, corn, alcohol. These things can be very, very toxic. Now let's move over to the board and keep this thing rolling. Okay, here's a few more points I wanted to make about this conversation of mold toxicity and the gut. Number one, mycotoxins cause leaky gut. You've probably heard this term a million times. This is intestinal permeability, but mycotoxins, specifically what you're breathing in or what you're ingesting, are actually going to create that intestinal permeability. You've got this one cell lining in the gut. The mycotoxins, which we'll do here in dark purple, will actually penetrate into the bloodstream, and that can set off this massive immune response, which then can create all sorts of autoimmunity. Next, mycotoxins directly deplete your neurotransmitters. So these are your brain chemicals. This is going to be dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. All of that can be affected primarily due to the inflammation in the gut, but there is a direct impact of the mycotoxins on the brain. We'll get to that in a second. Leptin receptors also are impaired. Now leptin is your satiety hormone. So if you are massively gaining weight 10, 20, 30, 50 pounds without trying, or if you've lost weight, so for some reason, I'm sorry ladies, you gain weight, men tend to lose weight when they're exposed to mycotoxins. I've seen it go both ways. I've seen women lose weight, I've seen men lose weight, I've seen them both gain weight. And part of that is due to the mechanism of the leptin receptor. So leptin is your satiety hormone and ghrelin is your hunger hormone. This cycle can get impaired. So if you feel like you eat a meal and you've got to have a piece of dark chocolate or a cookie or some other sweet after your meal, you could have some issue with leptin resistance or just simply the leptin receptor being blocked by the mycotoxin. How does this all tie back into the gut? Well, because now you're probably going to have a lot of cravings, which I wrote over here. So now you're going to be going for ice cream and sugar and candy and grains and alcohol and things that you shouldn't be doing, but you have this double whammy of your neurotransmitters are depleted due to the mycotoxin exposure. Now you've got leptin receptors blocked, so you're starving to death. You never get that satiety feeling after a meal. You're still hungry, so now you're eating garbage. Now you're causing further leaky gut, setting yourself up for autoimmune issues because now you've got undigested food particles, probably not good foods if you're craving and eating bad things. That's getting into the bloodstream, driving up further inflammation, further potential for autoimmune issues like Hashimoto's or Sjogren's or rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, there's tons of autoimmune diseases that we see in the clinic, but all of that could be driven by this big mold exposure. So please, please understand this connection. This is probably the most important one next. So let's get back to the board because this is the big smoking gun. Mycotoxins promote SIBO and SIFO. If you've been treating yourself, whether with a naturopath, a functional medicine doctor, or even on your own, whether it's olive oil, berberine, oregano, grapefruit seed extract, biofilm busters, all of this extra functional medicine strategies and herbs that we implement in the clinic, but you haven't beaten it in your SIBO, that means small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIFO, small intestinal fungal overgrowth. Yes, many people have that at the same time. Also, don't forget about parasites, H. pylori, and other infections in the gut. But this problem is promoted by exposure to mycotoxins. And the lab even tells you that on the report. We run a urine sample to investigate this, and the lab tells you right there, this promotes the overgrowth of Clostridia, which is a very bad bacteria, also Candida. And so here's the problem. Many people go to their gut doctor, maybe they get put on rifaximin or some other SIBO protocol and they don't fully get well. That's because they haven't worked enough upstream to actually get the mold toxin issue resolved using the appropriate binders and detoxification methods that we use in our clinic. Now, once you do that, finally you can get well and stay well. You will suppress the growth of the pathogenic bacteria, but you won't relapse like you did last time. So often, and I figured this out during my own suffering journey with mold exposure and gut issues and skin issues and mood issues. I've covered this for years on my podcast, but the long story short of it is, until I got sick from mold, I didn't even consider this as an option. Once I was able to find and fix the mold, then I was able to finally get my gut better. So it was an incredible learning tool. And then lastly, at the bottom here, I'll make sure we're focused on the board. Number 5, the big connection here, the big issue you need to worry about is the potential for lowered immunity. We know specifically a lot of these mycotoxins are carcinogenic. They cause cancer, and they also lead to neurodegenerative diseases. So that's the problem. Once again, you go to your neurologist and you suspect you've got some type of issue, whether it's Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or even ALS. A lot of times mold toxicity is considered the great mimicker. Dr. Neil Nathan and I discuss this on the podcast, but a lot of people have neurodegenerative symptoms from the damage to the brain. Specifically, the cerebellum is damaged by ochre toxin. The prefrontal cortex can have damage due to other mold toxins. Think about how close your sinus cavity is to your brain. That's why some of the direct inhalation of these mycotoxins can create brain fog and other cognitive problems. So if you've been to the neurologist, or hopefully you're not at that level where you're freaking out and running to them yet, you got to consider this mold toxicity problem, because it will certainly cause issues with memory, cognition, decision making, short-term memory to long-term memory conversion. You forget your best friend's name, you forget why you walked into the pantry, where'd you put your keys, where'd you put your phone. These type of things that many people blow off as old age could not be further from the truth. And the reality is, you can have a healthy brain well into your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. I've seen clients and I've helped them achieve that goal in those later years, and a lot of it is by removing these toxins along with heavy metals and pesticides and other chemicals from the modern society. So this is Evan Brand signing out. If you have a gut issue, consider mold toxicity. Make sure you test for this. You can contact my office if you need help with this. I'd be happy to. I work with people around the world. We also have a professional supplement line dedicated to fixing these type of problems. So take good care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.